Okay, let's go next to the Warriors.
Yeah.
Couple of fun games in Japan. I could not tell you who won those two games. Like, I have no idea. I was just watching like for tape, and I was watching for evaluation purposes, not, and I'm sure that the Warriors feel that way. I'm sure the Wizards feel that way as well. But really, I wanted to get eyes on the two guys that the Warriors have taken in two of their last three drafts. Moses Moody, Jonathan Kuminga, I feel pretty good about them. They are pretty solid. Johnny Davis, honestly, didn't really impress me that much in those two games, and I don't think it's worth diving into that. But James Wiseman and Pat Baldwin had a couple of, or at least in Wiseman's case, it was a couple of games. Pat Baldwin was more the second game that I think, I don't want to go as far as to say we're like eye-opening in a variety of ways, but they were really interesting from an evaluation and scouting perspective. Like I talked about with Danny LaRue on the last podcast, setting the trade market. The Warriors really need to, this is the year where James Wiseman really has to show them that he can be a part of the future for them, because he becomes not just like a $10 million fourth year rookie option for them. He's like a $40 to $50 million player with the luxury tax if they retain all of Jordan Poole, Andrew Wiggins, Draymond Green next year, because the repeater tax is going to really, really hammer them. So it could really make sense for them to potentially move on from James Wiseman after this year if he's still kind of scuffling along a little bit. I really liked what I saw from James Wiseman, especially offensively in these two games. I thought it was really fun. I thought that there were way more positives than negatives, especially for a guy that doesn't have a ton of NBA experience at this point, is coming off of injuries that, we're still a little bit skeptical how it's all going to look. I really, really liked the James Wiseman experience. He had 20 points and 9 rebounds in the first game. I don't know what his numbers were in the second game, to be honest. But I thought that the positives of him being like a strong rim runner, a strong transition threat offensively, just his ability to run the floor is so effective. If he's caught out, on an island defensively and he's able to contest a shot and then the guy misses and the Warriors are able to grab the rebound, he's going to be an immediate threat for 2 points the other way, just because he's so fast. He's so long. He just gets out on the break so quick. He had that enormous transition dunk on Kristaps Porzingis, kind of showcasing that. He made a 3 in the second game, made a baseline jumper in the first game, rebounded, I thought, really well on the offensive end, particularly really active, really energetic, aggressive. Yeah, I really liked what I saw from James Wiseman, and I just want to start there.
I loved what I saw. And, you mentioned the energy and the athleticism of being an open court type of threat. The Warriors have so many good passers too. Guys that, their backside of their defense is always pretty strong, where they get stops. They've got guys who can rebound, push ahead. But Steph, Draymond, pretty much Jordan Poole, a bunch of guys who are really plus playmakers that can advance the ball and find him in transition. I think it's been a long time since we've seen an elite lob-catching big man play with Steph Curry. That touch-and-go screening type of ability. You might be able to run some 4-5 pick-and-roll action with a guy like Draymond Green from time to time. I think it helps.
That's the one that interests me most.
Yeah.
That's the one where I think they could do some really creative stuff with it.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways that you can involve Wiseman, even if the jump shot isn't a major consistent part of his arsenal. Now, I have always loved James Wiseman as a prospect. I think the last couple of years have been really difficult to evaluate how much growth goes into a guy who basically just gets 1-on-0 training sessions and is so start-stop with his injuries. But a really intriguing piece to be able to add into this rotation, particularly in the regular season. But if there's consistency of his role throughout the next 82 games plus preseason here, then we're probably looking at a different type of threat that the Warriors haven't had on their championship runs over the last 7 or 8 years.
Yeah, completely agree. And I don't think James Wiseman has to even be better than Kevon Looney this year for it to show that he's making strides and, being an impact player. If he can come in for 18 minutes a night this year and provide a shot blocking threat on the interior with his 7'6" wingspan and be an effective, energetic offensive player who sets screens, rim runs, occasionally picks and pops, gets out in transition, hits the offensive glass hard. that's probably a win for the Warriors. Now, like, he had a couple of fumbly moments. Like, hands have always been a bit of a concern for Wiseman, and he needs to continue to improve that. Like, the thing that worries me right now about him in like pick and roll more than anything is there isn't a whole lot of like role diversity to what he can do. Like, I don't feel good about him short rolling right now. Like, I don't think that he can really like short roll and then make like a cross corner kick. I don't think he can short roll and like put the ball on the ground and get to the basket like in one move. I would worry about what that looks like, given how quickly that stuff has to move around you when you're making those kind of plays. I do think though that he's just long, and it's hard to not actually sorry, I just got a text from like an NBA person. It's hard. It's really hard to out high point him in ball screens. It's just really, really hard to have someone as big as him and as long as him that's going to be able to stop him as a like ball screen threat, like rim running. And that's going to make it really, really difficult. And it's going to create a new dimension for the Warriors this year when he's on the court. Defensively, look, it's the preseason, and you just have to hope that like being in year 3 there, having Draymond Green around, that he can make it work. Right. I didn't see anything like overly positive, overly negative. When we saw him last on an NBA court, I thought it was fairly negative in ball screen coverages. And I think we're going to have to see him clean that up a little bit. But everything all told here, the last little note I will give on him is, man, he just has to be strong going up to the basket. He's big. He is stronger and like thicker. He's like 255 pounds. Like he's bigger than people think he is. Even in terms of length as well. Like he's 7'1". Like he's a big, big dude. Like, go up strong. Don't fade away from contact because you're worried about getting your shot blocked. Go up with power, go up with physicality. Don't be afraid of getting fouled. You have a good stroke from the foul line. Like, just do it, man. If you get hit, you get hit, man. Like, go for it. That's what I would like to see from him. Yeah. If he does that this year, I will be ecstatic. If that's if that's the only development from him this year, I would be ecstatic.
Well, and you mentioned that he doesn't have to be better than Kevon Looney. It's so right in that regard, because Looney is Mr. Dependable. They know what they're getting. He just needs to be different. There are certain matchups, certain games, certain times, and you need to add a different element. Maybe you do a little bit more switching on the perimeter with a guy like Wiseman because you know his ball screen stuff isn't great. Maybe, you're just running a lot more pick and roll and you save him for second units in those moments when, it's the Jordan Poole show and you want to be able to play through him a little bit more. There are going to be the opportunistic moments to maximize what Wiseman brings to the table. I think what these couple games in Japan have really showed me is those are going to be utilized by the Golden State Warriors. They're going to find ways to just make him productive in the moments he is on the floor.
Let's go to Pat Baldwin now. Really, the second game is the one that caught my eye. I don't really remember him much in the first game, to be honest. The second game, he made 4 threes, continued to look good coming off of their actions. He's a really, really smart, high IQ player. That's always been accurate with Pat. But the thing that stands out most is the movement. He is moving better than he did at Milwaukee during pre-draft, where he tested as one of the worst athletes like in the last 5 years of the combine. Like it was not just like he was the worst athlete of this year's combine. And I think that one thing that is contextual about all of this is none of us really knew how bad the ankle injury was. He had an ankle injury in high school. It continued to fester apparently throughout his collegiate season. They shut it down eventually during his lone collegiate season at Milwaukee with his dad. And from there, I think it was tough for him to get through the pre-draft process in a way that was able to, be positive and help his stock as opposed to hindering it in front of teams. This is a guy that won 28th overall. Like, it's not like the Warriors, maybe the Warriors did have a better feel on it, but like a lot of teams passed on Pat Baldwin knowing all of this, knowing the context. Like the context of his ankle stuff is not new. It's interesting though that it seems like he's moving better. Like that is the biggest thing I took away from that second game is like he's not moving, like a guard or anything, or even like a wing, but there were times at Milwaukee and over the last couple of years where like you were worried about how he would look even like as a big on an island against guards. Like he struggled against guards in the Horizon League to stay in front of them. And like, if he was this healthy and like moving this well at Milwaukee last year, he wouldn't have those problems. Like he's moving much better, it looks like, than what he was over the course of the last couple of years. Worth remembering, played at USA Basketball in 2021, missed, I think, all but like a game and a half of his senior season in high school due to an ankle injury. So, it was kind of, it's hard to gauge, what I mean, where exactly the health was with his ankle. And this is stuff that NBA teams certainly had access to. It's stuff that, public facing people, like I get hints about it for sure. And, you hear, basically what I was told was like, it's an informed bet from teams. There are some that thought that they could really work with him and improve his mobility and get him healthier and that would work. But it was an informed bet that they didn't really know for sure about all of this. So where do you stand on Pat Baldwin after these couple of preseason games that we've now seen?
The shot looks great. It was good to see it go in. I think he has always had a really pure stroke, and that's going to be his meal ticket. He's a really good plus size shooter at about 6'9", maybe even closer to 6'10" eventually.
And real quick, like I do want to note on the shooting too, ankle injuries really fuck with your shooting. Like they do. This is a guy that shot 26% from three last year at Milwaukee. There is no NBA evaluator that thought he wasn't going to shoot. You know what I mean? Like everyone believed that he would shoot. It was more the rest of his game and how that would translate to everything else. I'm sorry for interrupting.
No.
I just wanted to be kind of clear about that.
Great point. Great point. What I was watching for wasn't just the shot, though. It was, like you said, the mobility and the movement patterns. He looks better. He looks crisp in a way that I would probably say he is deserving of being a top 20, top 25 pick. So where the Warriors got him, like, I don't want to overreact to this coming out of two preseason games, mainly one preseason game in Japan, and say, oh, look, he was a lottery pick all along. Like there's also the double-edged sword of this where there's going to be some folks out there who say we're pushing him too low and punishing a guy for an injury when he's healthy, he plays so well. As soon as he sprains an ankle sometime this year, he's going to get that injury-prone label thrown right back on him. Like we can't have it both ways. I've always thought that Baldwin is the type of player who is going to thrive in an NBA space system where there are really good guards that set him up for open shots and opportunities. I was most impressed by his one kind of mismatch post opportunity where he hit that fadeaway jumper going over the top. Like if there's a little bit of strength that he has in his game and comfort level doing that, then he's more than just a floor spacer. But this is always going to be very simple for Baldwin. Can he add any type of ball skills to his repertoire? And is he going to be able to defend multiple positions and or not just be plugged in on the worst offensive player on the floor?
Yeah. And this is what we should leave it at, I think, on Pat Baldwin. We should be like excited for Pat Baldwin first and foremost. I think that we should this is a guy that was the number one recruit in the country for, I think, 2 years of his high school career, like his sophomore and junior seasons. Like he was the number one kid in that class. And as someone like Imani Bates is learning, others countless through history, it fucking sucks when you're hyped to hell and you get hurt or just factors kind of, conspire against you almost. And you end up getting stuck, right? You end up falling in the draft and people aren't as excited about you anymore. It sucks. And I'm just excited that he looks healthy and he's playing well. But at the end of the day, this is a preseason game. We shouldn't, the signs are good right now is what I would say, right? The signs look positive on Pat Baldwin. And I hope that the Warriors are able to keep him healthy. I hope that they're able to go and be positive. What we should not do is what Fran Fraschilla did earlier. He said, it's early, but you're starting to see mea culpas from the draft, quote unquote, experts. Bottom line is that the Warriors have a great scouting staff. I know most of them. They know what they're doing. It's been a preseason game. And by the way, he's coming at me and he's coming at Kevin O'Connor because we're the only two that talked about this game, right? We're the only two that like tweeted about this among the draft community, expert, quote unquote, whatever you want to talk about, right? And we're like we're like one good preseason game in. And that is him dunking on draft experts as opposed to being excited about Pat Baldwin and excited about, getting a chance to see a guy that hasn't been healthy for the last couple of years be healthy. And by the way, like scouts don't know like if he's going to be healthy. Oh, by the way, draft experts aren't the one that caused Pat Baldwin to fall. 27 fucking teams passed on Pat Baldwin, or, however many teams had multiple picks. 27 opportunities were there for him to be picked and he wasn't picked. So it wasn't just draft experts that were low on Pat Baldwin. The league was lower on Pat Baldwin than what apparently Fran wanted them to be. All credit to the Warriors. They deserve it. Their scouts did so far what looks like a good job, right? What we shouldn't do is extrapolate this out as like a draft experts on the internet thing. Get out of here, man. Like, what are you doing? Like, nobody's saying that we're smarter than the Warriors. I think the Warriors do a good job. I think I've been like on this podcast I think I've said this earlier this summer. I think they get maligned unfairly for having missed like Jacob Evans and Damian Jones and Festus Ezeli and a couple of those guys. Like they nailed the Jordan Poole pick. They nailed the Draymond Green pick. They nailed X, Y, and Z number of really high level picks. Like be happy for the kid. Don't take the opportunity to dunk on quote unquote draft experts because you're not on ESPN's draft coverage. Like, get out of here.